Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang dhammang sangham namasami. When the Buddha established his training, he established it for the benefit of all beings. And he established it in such a way that there was a possibility for everyone to take a training, whether they were monastic or householders. There's a training for everyone. I think what's particularly for me so uplifting is when I look around after many years of living as a solitary nun. I look around and I have companions on the path, and when I see Ayya Nimala bowing to the shrine and expressing her gratitude, it's like looking in the mirror, because this is what I've been doing for so many years, and now that there are others that are doing it with me and they're having that joy, it's almost unbelievable. There's something very special. It's just like if you were wandering in a desert and you were traveling through a wilderness on your own for a long time, and then you find a companion who's willing to travel with you through the wilderness. And the world is like a wilderness. And now to have two companions. Mm-hmm. This wilderness is one that looks not so wild, but the reason it's called a wilderness is because it's full of unwholesome trails and unwholesome pathways that people acting out of ignorance, acting without understanding what kind of goodness can be brought forth. That's what the world follows. It follows that tone, that rhythm. Based on ignorance, human beings act in ways that are driven by greed, or driven by selfishness, driven by lack of wisdom, driven by ill will, or driven by confusion. That's not to say that here in the monastery we don't have those qualities in our minds, but we are not driven by them. If we can bring enough mindfulness to bear, then that's exactly the direction we try not to go. And our refuge is really what directs us, rather than our desires. Our refuge and our understanding of the importance of giving up harmful ways of speech and harmful ways of conduct and harmful ways of thinking. So we hold together on blazing a trail through the wilderness of the mind. Two of the things that are very important, not only in monastic life but in lay life, are faith and wisdom. Faith is a quality of the mind that is trusting and confident. And wisdom is a quality of the mind that has enough understanding to lead faith in the right direction, in a wholesome direction, in a direction that bears good fruit. But they work very much together. They balance each other. And they also work in conjunction with energy mindfulness and concentration. When we meditate, we can clearly see how important it is to trust the breath, to trust the body, and to use our wise understanding to sit long enough so that our minds can settle down. And then we keep trusting, and we bring in the faculties of energy, mindfulness, and concentration of our attention on the breath, on the body. And then we persevere with it. And when we take that out into daily life, it has the same kind of flavor. So if our faith is weighty enough and doesn't get knocked off course by the messages that we get from the world, then we can persevere long enough to see the goodness in our hearts, or the dream that we have, the wish to fulfill that goodness. We see it come to fruit, or we can see it beginning to flourish. But we have to concentrate in one direction without getting distracted. It's the same kind of thing. When we're meditating, we can get distracted by sounds, by sleepiness, by thoughts, by restlessness, by strong mood in the mind, or by lack of understanding how to practice well. The same thing happens when we're out in the world trying to blaze the trail through the wilderness. Things deflect us. We get sick, or we get upset by conditions, or we lose our job, or a relationship ends, or something new begins and it's nerve-wracking. We take a new job or move to a new place, or we're facing old age, or we're in an accident. So many things can distract and deflect us from what we wish to achieve and what we want to see happen in our lives. But with wisdom and trust and continuing to point ourselves in the direction of what we know will really support us, we can do amazing things. Like starting a bhikkhuni monastery. If anyone had told me 4 years ago that I was going to be training a bhikkhuni, I would have thought, no way. And I remember 25 years ago when I wanted to be a bhikkhuni, and the monks that I was training with told me there was no such thing. I just kind of put that on the shelf. I thought, okay, this is not possible, can't happen. But I never forgot that, because I'd read the Buddha's suttas and studied, and I'd heard this word bhikkhuni, and I knew there was such a thing long ago, and it wasn't in this tradition, but it just sounded very wholesome. And I remember when I was training in England, and we were given passports. We're given the certificate which says your ordination date, your your lay name. Well, it's like a marriage. You get a certificate. Your lay name and where you were born, and there's this, and then a picture of you in the robe with a stamp on it, and when you were ordained. And the monks had the same passport, but on their passport it went from Samanera to Bhikkhu. And in our passport it was just it wasn't Samanera, it was Siladhara. And then the other pages were blank. And so you just accept it because it's a beautiful training and that's what's being offered. And there isn't anything else. But somehow those pages, those empty pages, were somewhere in the back of my mind. It's like this space is going to be filled in. And I think karma also has a role in that. It's not just our desire or our dream. But I think one sets oneself on a course and one holds the virtue. One holds all the tools, foremost in the mind. And then when conditions ripen, then that little seed that was planted in the heart so long ago, suddenly it's getting watered. It's had just enough heat, just enough moisture to sprout, to come to be. And the same is true with using these qualities of wisdom and faith in our hearts. If we have faith up to a point, and then we get discouraged by life, we feel overwhelmed, we don't find our place in the world, but we keep trusting because we know that the direction that we're cultivating is a wholesome one, and the path is precious, it's noble, it's higher than anything, it's more pure, and has the greatest potential of anything that the world has to offer. So in spite of what the world is telling us, we keep trusting that little space in our heart that where we're cultivating can grow and grow and grow. And the wisdom sees that the growth is healthy. The world might not honor it, it might not treasure it. Certainly here we've been so beautifully supported by all of you and so many others. And we've really had marvelous conditions, but there are many women that have been mistreated. We heard about a nun who was Burmese and went to Sri Lanka and took bhikkhuni ordination and then went back to Burma to visit her father, and she was arrested for being a bhikkhuni. She was arrested and tortured. She was thrown in prison and tortured and finally disrobed. I think she was forced to disrobe, or just so badly abused that she could not hold the training any longer. This is unbelievable, but these things happen. You think about the wonderful conditions that we have. There's absolutely nothing we could possibly complain about. So what if some monks think we don't exist? There's many that do. And they even, some of them traveled thousands of miles to attend and participate in Ayya Nimala's ordination. So it's like, for me, seeing all this rise up out of nothing, really, is a dream. And all I'm saying is that if you have a dream for the Dhamma to flourish in your heart, then never give up on it, because it will, and it can, and it is, right here and now. Just as our dream, which is only a convention, really, it's just, so what? You don't have to be a bhikkhuni. But it is important. The Buddha set up the fourfold assembly, four: monks, nuns, laymen, and laywomen. And so we need that for the Dhamma to thrive on the conventional level and for the generations to come. But on a personal, individual level, what we need in our hearts is we need the faith, and it's quality of faith like the kind that a bird has when it sits on a tree in a wavering branch on the cold of a morning, and the sun hasn't quite, it's just dawn. The sun isn't even, no warmth coming yet, and that little bird sings. starts to announce the sun is coming. That's the faith that dawn is coming. So that's the quality of faith that we must develop within ourselves. That the dawn of the Dhamma in ourselves, in our hearts, is just coming. It comes on the heels of every moment of mindfulness that we put forth through our efforts, through our remembering to be aware, to pay attention, through our giving up of the distractions of life and all the things that the world promises us, is not taking them to be complete, to be true. They're temporary. Sure, they give us little happiness here and there. But if we have an intention for something beyond this world, something that will nurture us and free us, rescue us from greed, hatred, and delusion, we must never give that up. Never lose confidence that that can bear fruit within us. It's just like the Buddha. His father tried his best to protect Siddhartha when he was a prince. You know, he built him so many palaces, provided every luxury possible to prevent this glorious son of his from going out and tasting the things of the world, because the prediction was that he would either become this great sage or a world-conquering ruler. And the king was determined that he should do this. So he made every effort. But the Buddha had the wisdom to know there was something beyond all this. And he went out the gates to find out what's out there. What is beyond? Also, when he saw the handmaidens sleeping around the halls of the palace at night and snoring and looking all disheveled and ugly, not pleasant, not beautiful, then that started him thinking, finding out. He went and he investigated more thoroughly, beyond the mask that his father tried to pull in front of him. He went beyond it. And then he saw old age, the old person. And we're looking at it ourselves. We see that in our life. How much can we disguise that? How long can we keep pushing it to the edges of our consciousness so that we can just enjoy the sense pleasures? But they're never. In the end, the glass is empty, the belly starts to hang and everything else. And we can't hold the body beautiful anymore. We can't hold the world beautiful anymore. And he saw the sick person. We can't avoid the illness coming. And he saw the corpse. We can't avoid people getting terrible illnesses ourselves, getting cancer or MS. I wanted to add a dedication to Ajahn Vayama, a wonderful old friend of mine from many years ago, who had led her community for so many years and then suddenly in her mid-50s developed this serious degenerative illness. Now she can't lead the community anymore. But she's very well in herself, she writes. I am well in myself. She couldn't actually write the letter, someone had to write it for her. Because she has the Dhamma. So the corpse is there, the sickness is there, the old age and the decrepitude creeping in little by little. But if we have the Dhamma, And the Buddha saw the samana there. The samana sanya is very important. This is where the wisdom kicks in. If we see the samana, we remember. That's why it's very important for there to be men and women doing what we're doing. We are the samana sanya in this world. Otherwise people just get depressed. What do I do when I'm dying of cancer? What do I do when I can't use my limbs properly? People who were guitar players or dentists, if they start shaking like me, then they can't do that anymore. Their whole profession is meaningless, and then they're redundant. What does the world offer people who are redundant? Redundancy. It's like a closed door. It's a bunch of doors closing in the face. There's nowhere to turn anymore. But to have the Dhamma, to have that samana sanya reminds us there is something that we can take refuge in. And it doesn't move the way the world moves. It's silent and it's deep. And it's portable, it's within us. We don't have to be dependent on other people to make us happy. We just have to look into the silence and goodness of our own heart. That's really where it is. And then whether we have hair or not, Joanne was saying to me, I'm going to lose all my beautiful long blonde hair and I'm going to be just like you. She said, but I wasn't quite ready for that. But she's 60. 60 with long blonde hair. How many years do we want to keep, for how long are we going to keep trying to make it look like it's not 60? It only goes so far. I'm not trying to make it depressed here. But this is what the Buddha told us. Don't take refuge in the body, but take refuge in the heart. The heart that is not greedy, that is not hateful, that is not self-centered, that is not confused. It's the heart that is grounded in anicca, dukkha, anatta. It's fearless, it's empty of greed, it's harmless, it's virtuous. It has faith and wisdom, but faith in that which is worthy of faith. It's beyond the world, because the world, how many worlds arise and cease? People are worried about the planet dying. Our planet is dying. We don't want it to die, of course. We don't want our own bodies to die. But what we fail to realize is that we've been circling for lifetimes, being born and dying, birth, old age, sickness, death. We've been doing this forever. And the cause of birth is karma. We never figured it out before, and now we have an opportunity to figure it out. So take that dream of nibbana, of fully awakening, and bring it to bear within us. All the investments we make in the world will give us only a temporary happiness. It will not keep the golden locks on our heads. It will not keep our teeth from falling out, our digestive system able to eat exotic foods and enjoy them. It comes to a point where you can't, because tummy won't take it. But we're so happy just to get whatever food we get, and that's samana sanya. We've already given up the delights of the world. Not that we don't enjoy the lovely desserts that Robin cooked in the when Nimala wasn't around, and then snuck it on the table this morning. Nimala has a very good sense of smell, however. And she sussed it out. It's not that we don't enjoy and try to share the pleasures and the goodies of human life, human existence, but we know their limitations. And we know the boundless quality of this heart. That's why we're here. We've glimpsed that, and we realize that it does give us something that no one can take away from us. And it does give us the possibility to realize the deathless, that which doesn't die. And if we continue practicing and cultivating a faith that is not limited, it's really unconditional. It's not, if you're nice to me, I'll have faith. If you come practice with me, I'll have faith. If you make it easy for me, I'll have faith. Like when I was living in New Zealand, if you feed me, oh Lord Buddha, if you feed me every day, I'll have faith. But that didn't work. And then I realized that was a conditional faith and it wasn't worthy of a samana. So when people bring food, we rejoice. And if we can't digest it, then we reflect, oh, the body is getting old. But we have gratitude for people wanting to come and feed us, making an effort and practicing with us. And we recognize the rarity of this. Think how many people you know, how many people, between the 10 of us, how many people do we know? And how many of those people are sitting and meditating every day, for example? Probably quite a few of them, because we do. So we stay with usually, often, like-minded people. But then there are lots that don't. Out of those that don't, how many of them fulfill their dreams? How many of us fulfill our dreams? I tell you, I am living my dream right here and now. And it's a source of great happiness. Living it and still trying to fulfill it. And so all of us have this capacity. If we have the courage and the energy to give ourselves to it. And that above faith and wisdom, above mindfulness and energy, and above concentration of the mind, and continually pointing ourselves in that wholesome direction, is virtue and renunciation. Those are two that are not mentioned as faculties of the mind, but they go hand in hand. It's not a faculty, it's a movement, it's a way of conduct. It's something that we have to do inside as well. Like we have to realize through our wisdom that give up, give time for this rather than time for that. And that's a gift. So when we renounce the things that should be or need to be given up, then we have the ability to dedicate ourselves to that which is worthy of our time and effort, our mindfulness, our concentration, and our faith. So wisdom leads, but faith also sometimes has to lead. And the wisdom knows the importance of renouncing. If we renounce, then we can... How many people can't give up the thing that prevents them from keeping the 5 precepts? How many of us in daily life, in household life, we want to follow the world. We can't completely devote ourselves to purifying conduct and speech because we can't give up some of our habits. But one day, like coffee, I couldn't give up coffee for the longest time. Now I can't drink it because it gives me acid. I just can't take it. I'm so grateful. I started to see was attachment. Of course you can give it up. And I would have felt better about myself if I could give the coffee up just by saying, I'm not having it anymore. But at least I see the value that when I'm awake, I'm really awake. It's not an artificial caffeine hit. And when I'm asleep, I'm really asleep. But renunciation is powerful. If you're holding something, then your energy is occupied. And if you put it down, it's free. It's just like if you spend time with people that aren't nice to you or don't treat you well, then you don't have time to spend with the people that really love and cherish you. Usually we don't think of our energy expenditure in those terms. Well, some people say, well, I don't have time to meditate because I'm so busy. But if we were to do an inventory of what our busyness is about, we would find a lot of useless activity in there. A lot of minutes that we could shave off our busyness so that we'd have a good chunk of time to sit and be with the silent mind, to be in the moment, to be still, to be joyful, to calm the mind. That's a renunciation right there. But we have to do the inventory. We have to actually check off certain boxes of our life to find out what we're doing that's making us so busy and so unable to give up things that aren't even good for us, and not be able to make our dream flower and be nurtured properly. So everyone has time. Everyone has the time to do more of this practice, has the ability to do more, has the ability to nurture this path if we just stop to reflect, if we trust and look wisely at how we're living and reorganize ourselves, reorganize our physical movements, our speech movements, the movements of our minds. Of course, that's the clincher. That's where wise reflection and sati, mindfulness, sati panya, come in. And then we give up thoughts that aren't... You say something stupid, once it's out there, it's like a bomb. It's too late. But we can try not to do that anymore. Here in the monastery, the results of saying silly things are very immediate, and you get the feedback right away. So this is why it's such a powerful container. We're always mirroring to each other, really. You can't avoid it, because when I look at Ayya, I see the Buddha, I see the Dhamma, I see the Sangha. So, is that ever a reminder? It's constant, a constant reminder. But when you see the world, you don't see the Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha very often. You see the sparkle and the glitter and the good taste and the beautiful sounds and the comfortable feeling. And then our attention is there. So by the time we come to meditate, we have to re-educate our attention where to spend itself. And here, the reminders are so constant every time we bow to the shrine. It's not that we're looking at the Buddha, but we're looking at the Buddha. Because the Buddha, through the Dhamma, is always alive. So we're with the teacher. And even if the teacher isn't sitting next to us and watching what we're doing, if we keep bringing up the sanya of Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha here, then we can watch and we can be the police person. And it's not a very nice thing to say, but we have to coach ourselves. We have to be the cop that says, no, you can't do that. That's not helpful. That's not healthy. That's not pure. That's not wise. That's not Dhamma. Why are you doing it? Right. Oops. And we realign. And then the dream grows. And by the end of the day, we feel we don't have to try to be on the path. We are the path. Our effort, our mindfulness, our wisdom, our faith, and our concentration, and they're tangible, they're visible. Other people see it, and we rejoice in each other. Of course we fall down. We don't all fall down together, thank goodness. That's why it's so important to have spiritual friends. To spend time with spiritual friends who encourage us in the ways of goodness and wholesomeness. And to leave the other friends behind. Because if we want to travel the wilderness, we have to travel with a wilderness traveler, not with someone that needs a certain kind of vehicle with bucket seats and four-wheel drive or special fast gear or cruise control. That's the one. That beats everything if you have cruise control. So that we can cruise through. No, the wilderness traveler is a trailblazer, is willing to suffer, is willing to endure hardship, is willing to renounce the comforts because there's something very, very precious. There are treasures to be had, and we know they're there. So we're digging for gold, mining for gold, as they say. And then it happens. In this very life, it really does. Gratitude is a wonderful mind state to oil this whole process along. And these days I'm feeling particularly grateful for my spiritual companions and for all our spiritual friends who come and support and encourage us. Thank you for your attention.